Welcome to the Midnight Mind. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and while you're at it, hit that like button for me. I really would appreciate it. You know what time it is? It's midnight. It's time to enter the mind of Nietzsche. We live in the safest, most comfortable age in human history, and yet everyone feels oppressed. Turn on a screen, scroll through any feed, listen long enough to the voices of the age, and you'll find the same refrain. I have been wronged. It echoes from every direction. The student betrayed by the system, the worker exploited by the corporation, the citizen crushed by the government, the individual unseen by society. Victimhood has become the new moral currency, traded daily in the markets of identity. But beneath this chorus of grievance lies a strange paradox. The people of the past lived shorter, harsher lives, yet many carried a strength that feels almost alien to us now. They endured famine, war, disease, and tyranny, and somehow they built civilizations. We, surrounded by abundance, crumble under inconvenience. We call discomfort trauma. We call rejection oppression. We confuse pain with injustice, and in doing so, we have turned victimhood into a kind of virtue. It's not that people are wrong to feel shaped by their circumstances. The system does mould us through education, economy, media, and myth. But what it truly steals is not freedom. It steals struggle. It deprives us of the very friction that once forged character. We have become seduced into believing that the absence of hardship is progress, when in truth, it's the slow decay of the human spirit. Strength was once necessary. Now it's optional, and few choose it. Comfort has become our god, safety our prayer. We have traded growth for ease, meaning for approval. In erasing suffering, we have erased the conditions that make greatness possible. The self that never faces resistance never learns its own weight. Nietzsche warned that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But in a world built to remove every how, the why disappears as well. Look around and you'll see it. An age addicted to validation but allergic to effort. People no longer fight for survival, they compete for sympathy. Every grievance becomes a flag, every wound a badge. Identity is measured by the depth of one's hurt, not the height of one's effort. The language of victimhood offers something intoxicating. It transforms suffering into status. It gives the powerless a sense of moral superiority, a way to say, I have been harmed, therefore I matter. Yet, this cult of the victim hides a darker truth. The more we define ourselves by what was done to us, the less capable we become of deciding what we will do next. We exchange agency for innocence. Blame becomes our shield, comfort our cage. In refusing responsibility, we also refuse transformation. The modern individual doesn't seek to overcome pain. They seek to be seen by it. They don't seek freedom, only validation. And validation never liberates. It pacifies. The system, clever as it is, rewards this passivity. It offers pre-built roles and pre-approved emotions. It gives us the illusion of rebellion while keeping us docile. We're told to speak our truth, but never to test it. We're told to find ourselves, but only within the boundaries of what can be sold. Every identity becomes a product line, every belief a subscription. The result is not liberation, it is dependency disguised as empowerment. Modern life is a masterpiece of managed helplessness. Everything has been designed for convenience, from the way we eat, to the way we work, to the way we think. You don't need to know how to grow food, build shelter, or create value. The system handles it all. Your role is simple: obey, consume, repeat. Dependency feels safe because the system provides, until it doesn't. This dependency breeds a subtle decay of confidence. When your survival no longer depends on your competence, competence feels unnecessary. You outsource more, your knowledge, your judgment, even your moral compass. You stop asking whether something is true and start asking whether it is trending. You stop learning how to endure pain and start learning how to avoid it. In protecting yourself from every possible discomfort, you slowly erase the capacity to live fully. And yet the system is not evil. It is efficient. It gives people exactly what they desire: the illusion of autonomy without the burden of consequence. Most people don't want freedom. They want safety with decoration. They want the feeling of choice, not the weight of it. The system understands this better than any philosopher ever could. It doesn't need to oppress you directly. It only needs to make you comfortable enough never to resist. The tragedy is that comfort doesn't satisfy. It sedates. It lulls the human will into hibernation. The man who no longer fights for meaning doesn't find peace. He finds emptiness. He drifts through days, scrolling through distractions, mistaking comfort for happiness. And when the inevitable pain of existence pierces his bubble, when he feels lost, anxious, unseen, he blames the world that made him soft. In truth, the system didn't rob him of strength. He gave it away. It didn't strip him of urgency. He traded it for convenience. This is the quiet transaction of modern life. We surrender the burden of responsibility in exchange for the comfort of dependency. We call it progress, but it's simply the domestication of the human spirit. You see it in workplaces built on repetition, where people spend decades doing tasks they neither understand nor believe in. You see it in the education system, which teaches obedience before wisdom. You see it in the endless entertainment loops, where outrage replaces insight and comfort masquerades as connection. Everywhere, people are kept just satisfied enough not to question why they feel so empty. Dependency feels safe, but it quietly kills the drive to transcend. The mind that never struggles never awakens, and when it finally does, it turns its frustration outward, not inward. It blames the system, the boss, the world, the others. Anything to avoid the truth, that the bars of the cage are held in place by comfort itself. We're living in an empire of soft walls. The doors are unlocked, but few leave. The modern individual has become a prisoner who guards his own cell. He tells himself he's trapped by circumstance, but he's bound by fear. Fear of discomfort, fear of failure, fear of freedom. The system didn't create these fears, it merely nurtured them. And so we arrive at the silent crisis of our age, a generation drowning in options, yet starving for meaning. The world is full of opportunity, but few have the courage to take it. Because comfort breeds entitlement, and entitlement breeds fragility. The mind accustomed to constant ease shatters at the first sign of resistance. What once made us human, endurance, curiosity, will, now feels like too much to bear. The victimhood narrative thrives in this vacuum. It gives people a reason to feel significant without demanding effort. It replaces the hero's journey with the wounded monologue. It's the religion of those who want moral worth without moral work. But no one rises from this altar stronger. They only sink deeper into themselves, addicted to pity, allergic to challenge. The system isn't keeping people down. It's keeping them comfortable enough never to climb. And in that comfort, they lose the one thing that could set them free: the will to rise. Comfort has replaced purpose. That is the defining wound of our age. Every difficulty can now be softened, every discomfort dissolved. The hunger that once forged ambition has been replaced by constant stimulation. The endless scroll, the flicker of approval, the brief illusion of significance. When life becomes this easy, it also becomes meaningless. People no longer suffer to grow. They suffer because they have forgotten how to. In this pleasure-saturated world, every form of pain becomes a crisis. Fatigue becomes burnout. Criticism becomes trauma. Rejection becomes abuse. We've confused fragility with sensitivity, and in doing so, we've turned every moment of discomfort into proof that the world is cruel. But in truth, the world has never been softer. What has hardened is our dependence on ease. The problem is not pleasure itself, it's its availability. When reward becomes constant, it loses its meaning. A mind that never faces resistance atrophies like an unused muscle. We've built lives filled with convenience but emptied of struggle, and the result is an epidemic of spiritual anemia. We have all the tools to build, but none of the will. We have freedom, yet we use it to distract ourselves from the weight of freedom. Every problem can be medicated, scrolled away, or blamed on someone else. The moment we feel pain, we reach for a remedy, a pill, a post, a protest. We externalize what once demanded reflection. The inner world becomes a foreign country, and instead of traveling there, we condemn it. Jung wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Today, avoidance has become our collective religion. Fear now disguises itself as morality. We call our avoidance boundaries. We call our self-protection trauma awareness. We call our weakness empathy. But these are not virtues when they become excuses for stagnation. The truth is simpler and far more uncomfortable. We are afraid of risk, of rejection, of the unknown. And to make that fear look noble, we rename it. Nietzsche saw this coming long before us. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he described the arrival of the last man, the creature of comfort, the end product of civilization's long retreat from struggle. He wrote, "They have left the regions where it is hard to live, for they need warmth. One still works, for work is a pastime, but one is careful lest the pastime should hurt." The last man lives long and shallow. He smiles at everything because he no longer believes in anything. The last man is not an individual. He's a condition of the soul. He's what happens when survival is guaranteed but purpose is not. He seeks safety, not greatness. He desires comfort, not truth. His life is a sequence of mild pleasures, and his death a quiet disappearance. He has everything he needs, except a reason to exist. And yet, this is the life most of us are taught to envy. We live in an age that mistakes numbness for peace. Our constant access to stimulation dulls the sharp edges of reality. We've become emotional aesthetics, incapable of deep despair and also incapable of deep joy. When pleasure is everywhere, meaning is nowhere. For meaning is born from contrast, the tension between what is and what could be. Without struggle, there is no depth. Without risk, there is no victory. This is the great pleasure trap. The mind becomes addicted to ease and allergic to effort. The soul withers from lack of challenge. We tell ourselves that we are victims of the system, when in truth we are victims of our own avoidance. We don't suffer because life is hard. We suffer because it's too easy to escape it. And when people refuse agency, blame fills the gap. It's easier to accuse than to act. The victim mindset provides identity. I suffer, therefore I am. I suffer, therefore I am. It's the inversion of Nietzsche's will to power, a will to weakness, a will to be seen as oppressed. In this way, pain becomes performance. Instead of transforming suffering into strength, we display it as proof of virtue. Blame is a form of psychological outsourcing. It relieves us of the burden of introspection. It lets us believe that our failures are collective, our disappointments structural, our limitations imposed. There is some truth in that. Systems do shape outcomes, but when every outcome is blamed on systems, the self disappears. The result is a generation fluent in outrage but illiterate in responsibility. The habit of blame erodes creativity. When you tell yourself you're powerless, you stop imagining possibilities. Every problem becomes someone else's fault, and therefore someone else's to solve. The imagination that could have built worlds now builds excuses. You cease to be the author of your own life and become a critic of everyone else's. Jung warned that confronting one's own soul is the most difficult task a person can face. Blame is how we avoid it. It's easier to say, I was wronged, than I was weak. Easier to demand justice than to pursue strength. But the more we externalize, the more hollow we become. We begin to worship power in others and despise it in ourselves. This self-imposed helplessness creates a strange addiction to outrage. The more powerless you feel, the more you crave something to hate. Blame becomes the only way to feel alive. Entire movements, ideologies, and online tribes now exist to feed this hunger. Echo chambers built around shared resentment. They offer belonging without growth, identity without self-awareness. The members feel united, but what unites them is the refusal to change. It's no coincidence that modern discourse is dominated by accusation. To be a victim is to possess moral authority. The louder the grievance, the greater the perceived virtue. But this is moral theatre, not moral courage. True courage doesn't broadcast pain, it transforms it. True power doesn't demand sympathy, it demands mastery. Blame is seductive because it feels righteous. It disguises avoidance as awareness. It turns fear into moral posture. But beneath every accusation lies a hidden confession. I'm afraid to face myself. The person who blames endlessly is not seeking justice, they're seeking escape. The more they point outward, the less they must look inward. This is how societies decline, not through war or famine, but through the slow erosion of self-responsibility. When everyone is a victim, no one is accountable. When blame becomes the language of the age, growth becomes impossible. A culture that worships suffering loses the capacity for transcendence. It begins to rot from within, not because of oppression, but because of surrender. Blame is not power, it's its shadow. It feels like control, but it breeds dependency. It gives the illusion of meaning, but only through comparison. I'm good because they are bad. I'm oppressed because they are powerful. This binary thinking destroys nuance, and with it, wisdom. To escape it requires something radical in our time, the willingness to say, I am responsible for what happens next. The system can be unfair, life can be cruel, but if you make these truths your identity, you hand your strength to them. Every moment you spend blaming the world is a moment stolen from your capacity to change it. Blame feels heavy, but it's hollow. Responsibility feels painful, but it is solid. The difference between them is the difference between decay and evolution. We live in an age obsessed with fairness, but indifferent to truth. Fairness demands that no one suffer more than another. Truth demands that each of us confront what we've become. Truth doesn't comfort the victim, it calls them to rise. And that call terrifies most people. Because once you answer it, you lose the right to blame anyone else ever again. Beneath every excuse lies fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of insignificance. These are not new enemies, they have lived in the human heart since the beginning. But in the modern world, fear has been dressed in softer names. We call it anxiety, stress, imposter syndrome. We treat it as an illness to be cured rather than a truth to be confronted. And so we never learn its lesson. Fear is the real jailer of the modern soul. Not the government, not the economy, not algorithms. It is fear of standing alone, of being wrong, of living without guarantees. Fear has learned to whisper in the language of reason. It says, stay where you are, don't risk it, be safe. And because comfort feels good, we obey. We mistake fear's voice for wisdom, when it's only the echo of our untested potential. The system didn't create this fear, it only nurtured it. It built a world where the familiar is always within reach, where everything dangerous or difficult is quietly removed for your convenience. But that convenience comes at a cost, the death of initiative. When everything is predictable, nothing feels alive. The system doesn't cage you, it simply convinces you that leaving would be foolish. And so the cage remains open, but no one moves. Freedom exists. It's always existed. You could leave your job tomorrow. You could leave your city, your friends, your patterns. You could walk away from every structure that dulls your spirit. You could reinvent yourself entirely. The door is open, yet almost no one steps through it. Why? Because the cage is familiar, and freedom is not. The unknown terrifies more than misery itself. This is the quiet tragedy of comfort. It doesn't enslave you, it persuades you to enslave yourself. You become the loyal servant of your own fear, defending it as if it were your friend. You protect the very chains that bind you, and when the thought of escape arises,
Fear floods the mind with reasons. It's too late. It's too risky. It's not practical. You call it realism. It's only fear in disguise. Every story of transformation begins the moment a person stops listening to that voice. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it language. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." Action kills fear. Not argument, not analysis. Action. The moment you take responsibility, fear loses its grip, because fear feeds on hesitation, and responsibility is decisive. Responsibility is the antidote to victimhood. It doesn't mean self-blame in the moral sense. It means ownership. It means acknowledging that your life, every emotion, every habit, every reaction, is the result of your choices. Even when life hurts you, your response remains yours. You can't control the world, but you can control how you meet it. This truth is simple. That is why people avoid it. Responsibility destroys the comforting narrative that keeps weakness alive. To say "I am responsible" is to kill the story of the helpless self. It's to strip away the excuses that protect mediocrity. Most people are not afraid of failure. They're afraid of losing the permission to fail without guilt. They want progress without pain, redemption without reckoning. But life doesn't work that way. You either carry your burden consciously, or it crushes you unconsciously. The weak resent responsibility because it exposes their complicity. It reveals that their suffering, though real, has become self-sustaining. They nurture it because it gives them identity. The strong embrace responsibility because it grants power. It's the dividing line between those who wish to be saved and those who wish to become sovereign. When you accept that everything is your fault, paradoxically, you become free. Because fault is not guilt. Fault is authorship. Schopenhauer wrote that the world will not change. Only your will can. It's a brutal but liberating truth. The external world will always resist your ideals. It will always frustrate your plans. But your will, that inner faculty of interpretation and choice, the more you cultivate it, the less the world can wound you. Freedom begins not when the world becomes fair, but when you stop needing it to be. This is why responsibility feels terrifying to those raised in comfort. It demands you abandon the fantasy of innocence. It demands that you look at your life not as a product of circumstance, but as a reflection of your choices. Every pattern of avoidance, every act of self-sabotage, every unspoken resentment, all of it is yours. Once you admit it, you can finally begin to change it. Until then, you will mistake motion for progress and blame for truth. Modern culture teaches the opposite. It tells you to protect your feelings, to validate your pain, to avoid anything that challenges your sense of self. It promises safety from reality. But this safety is sterile. It breeds dependence, not strength. To truly live, you must confront what you most fear in yourself. The capacity for both destruction and creation. Jung called this integrating the shadow. Until you meet the parts of yourself you've disowned, you'll always project them onto others and call it injustice. The path to power begins with a confession. I am to blame. Not as a punishment, but as a declaration of ownership. The moment you say those words, you cease to be a victim of life and become a participant in it. Every mistake becomes material for growth. Every obstacle becomes a test of will. You no longer ask, who is at fault, but what can I build from this? That shift from blame to creation is the birth of strength. Responsibility is not glamorous. It won't make you popular. It will strip away the comforting illusions that keep most people asleep. You will lose the sympathy of the herd, because the herd survives on shared excuses. But in losing that sympathy, you gain something greater: clarity. You'll see that meaning doesn't come from being protected, it comes from struggle, from the refusal to bow to ease, from the daily decision to meet existence on your own terms. If your life feels small, look for the cage you built yourself. Every bar is a belief you have not questioned. Every lock is a fear you've not faced. The system can't give you meaning. It can only give you comfort. Meaning is built in the furnace of effort, in risk, failure, and endurance. It's the reward for those who are willing to bear the weight of freedom. You are to blame, not because the world is against you, but because you are stronger than you've chosen to be. The system doesn't own your will, your fear does. Break that, and the world changes shape. You'll see that no one was keeping you small but you. And in that moment, blame dies, and something far greater is born. The herd will continue to obey. Authority will continue to command. But you have a choice. You can live as a product of comfort or as a creator of meaning. The path of responsibility is not safe, but it is real. It will wound you, but it will wake you. And in the end, that's all that matters. So when the voice of blame rises in your mind, when it whispers that you were wronged, forgotten, or trapped, answer it with action. Act even when afraid. Speak even when uncertain. Create even when you doubt. Because every act of responsibility is an act of rebellion against the age of comfort. Every act of ownership is a declaration of freedom. You are to blame, and that is your salvation. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Midnight Mind. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button for me. I really would appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.